Hello, and welcome to another exciting episode of SciFiPulse now, not SFP now, SciFiPulse now.
It's okay. You can
But
say
what's the show called again,
you
lads?
can say SFP now. If
Yeah,
you need to do it quick, you just SFP now.
yeah. SFP now. It sounds like I'm going for a pee. Um, Today we're going to be talking about classic series, two classic series actually. But it started with a question I was pondering the other night. I was actually watching some of the '90s episodes of The Outer Limits because I have MGM. I'm subscribed to it on my Amazon. I was watching some of the Outer Limits because I have it on there,
Yeah.
and I was engrossed in it. And then I got to thinking, why is it that they've never been able to successfully redo the Twilight Zone? Because we've had several attempts. Had one in 1985, and I think there was another one in the 90s, and we had the other one a couple of years ago
Yeah, on
uh,
Paramount
uh,
Plus,
from Paramount Plus. And
2019 and
I'm just
2020.
wondering, yeah. So I'm just wondering, what is it about the Twilight Zone that makes it harder for them to do a successful reboot of it, whereas they seem to succeed with the Outer Limits? So I'm just wondering what it is that's so much harder about redoing the Twilight Zone, and just wondering if you have any ideas.
Yeah, I mean to be fair, the Twilight Zone in the 80s went from 85 to 89, so that's a few seasons. That's not terrible. But yeah, I think Twilight Zone is much more personal kind of stories. They're just deeper stories usually, or they're trying to be. There's usually a lot of social commentary or philosophy, whatever going on in these stories, and they're usually like about normal people a lot of times. Whereas Outer Limits is more, and Twilight Zone's more fantasy, or it can be almost anything, but usually a little more supernatural or fantasy, I think. Really anything. It can be sci-fi too. Where Outer Limits
Horror.
is, yeah, Outer Limits is usually more sci-fi focused, and often will have stories about maybe not above average people, competent people, scientists or soldiers or whatever. So it's a little bit different. I would say Twilight Zone is a more challenging show to do. I can't remember the Paramount Plus show very well, but I remember it was very hit and miss. I would almost say every episode. I hope this isn't too harsh. Maybe I'm being harsh, lack of memory, but I felt like every episode was almost good, but there was always like Act One or Act Three or something. It just fell flat somewhere, and each one of them for some reason. And it's a challenging thing to do. I think with sci-fi formulaic, I don't want to say formulaic, but sci-fi genre in general, you have some formulas to fall back on, while Twilight Zone is much more out of the box type of a thing. So that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think Twilight Zone, it played around with science fiction, but it also played around with fantasy and horror as well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's quite a few episodes I remember Twilight Zone. They all kind of mix together, but I remember them being quite, very, very person centered, as in it was always a personal journey of one character, wasn't it?
A lot
That
of
that
times, yeah.
that was perceiving the world through different lens to how everyone else was perceiving it. So that's what I remember about Twilight Zone, as well as the intros, like there is a fifth dimension beyond that which is known to man. It is a middle ground between light and shadow, between science and superstition. This is the dimension of imagination. It is an area which we call the Twilight Zone. And then they changed it again in season two, something else. I mean, I think the Outer Limits got their intro right the first time.
Yeah, Outer Limits is one that sticks with me quite a bit. Though we control the vertical, the
Yeah,
horizontal, all that stuff.
we control the vertical, the horizontal. Do you not adjust your TV set?
Yeah, it's very, especially I remember as a kid watching that. It feels like you're traveling to it's really special, another reality thing. Like the TV is like, here, kid, we're gonna show you something really crazy. It's kind of wild.
I remember watching the black and white one when I was a kid in the 70s and 80s. They reran Twilight Zone and The Outer Limits quite a lot on our local TV stations. And I remember seeing the Outer Limits one and thinking, wow, this is cool. And and then later, because As you know, I read up on a lot of science fiction stuff and a lot of different stuff. And later when I seen it and thought about it, it kind of put me in mind of Orson Welles did a radio broadcast of War of the Worlds. I can't remember what decade it was. I think it was 1930s, 50s or something. And the broadcast was so convincing that it frightened half of America, apparently.
Yeah.
People were too afraid to go into work
Yep.
because this thing was so convincing. And then I thought, I wonder if that's kind of what inspired We Control the Vertical, the horizontal, and all that. If it was an attempt to get that same sort of reaction from people.
Mhm. I was trying to remember, like, you're talking about books. Twilight Zone's adapted a number of short stories, right? Maybe Hour Limits has too.
I think it probably did. I mean, I think a lot of the stories are written by Rod Serling,
Hmm.
which is another question that I have. Is Rod Serling maybe the reason the Twilight Zone can never quite escape its own past?
That's a good point. Rod Serling, the host, and make appearances in Twilight Zone constantly. It's definitely a presence, and I think they tried to do that in the newest one with what's his
Yeah, I got
name?
to look that up.
Yeah, Jordan Peele. They tried to do that with Jordan
That's
Peele,
from
right?
Jordan
As
Peele.
a narrator. And it kind of, oh gosh, now I remember that last episode was really not great. It was like a weird meta episode or something they did. But they tried to do that with Jordan Peele. Well, Jordan Peele's great. He's a great writer, great comedian and actor. It just didn't quite work. And that's a good point. I never thought about that. In Outer Limits, it's more faceless. There isn't like a host. There's a voice or whatever, and that's it. And so it's really timeless. You can do whatever you want. Whereas Rod Serling really was the face of Twilight Zone. Rod Serling did other shows too. Like, he was a Night Gallery.
Funny that as well, didn't he?
Yeah, he did front that too. That's a pretty wild show, a little more horror type show. And so I do think it does get affected by that. It would take a really strong narrator to be able to be that presence or not have a narrator. Did the 80s What did the 80s show do? Nothing? Just a voice or something or
I don't remember the 80s show. I only remember seeing the 80s film that they did. I never actually seen the 80s show.
yeah, 85 to 89.
Yeah, it's 1985.
I saw some of it when it came out or reruns. There was narrator Robin Ward, Charles Aidman. They probably didn't show anybody on screen though. So probably just a voice. I never thought about that until you asked. That is a big deal. Rod Serling. They do a kind of a nod to Rod Serling, I remember, in the last episode of the Paramount Plus series. Kind of cool, but it was a weird episode. I remember not really liking that episode. I don't know why there's not been a new Twilight Zone or why it can't be a big hit, but the Hour Limits definitely has stood out because the 90s Hour Limits was really, really good. It was part of the
It was
Showtime, right? Like when they would create Stargate SG1 on Showtime soon after.
it was event television for me, the Out Limits, back in the 90s. I think it'd be shown, Sky TV showing it on a Wednesday night, I think.
Did they?
And usually Stargate was on a Thursday night.
Hmm.
So it was like one of those shows that we kind of made appointment television.
Yeah, it was really good. The other Twilight Zones never really have stood out. And maybe that's partly Rod Serling. Maybe that's partly those kind of stories are just really tough to pull off. There's certain reputation you have to kind of meet with some of those classic Twilight Zone stories, and they're hard. They're hard to get. They have to be high quality stories.
They're very high quality stories, but they're also very nuanced stories, very, very moral. There's a moral argument or a moral point each one was making, and did it in such a way where it wasn't being political. I think, although some of the stuff could be quite political, it didn't go out of its way to be political, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and I do know that one of the Twilight Zone episodes of the new series that came out was pretty political. It was very obviously about a certain president. It was very obviously
Hmm.
making a nod to it. So that was very political of the time. So maybe that did hurt it a bit because of it. It was like anyway, you got to watch the episode, but It was obvious to anybody on either side of politics to what they were referring to. So, and maybe that's part of the problem. Maybe it was too obviously political. Yeah. I think if you're going to try to create a message about something, you've got to do it in such a way where it's nuanced and where you make people think. You don't just tell them what to think. You make them think about it deeper, not just tell them
I
what they
think
need to think.
I think I think it needs to sort of like play both arguments and just leave it at that. Both
You
arguments,
usually, yeah, not just
you know.
say like, oh no, this one's right, totally 100% right. So, and maybe that Twilight Zone, I'd have to go back and look at it, but maybe it wasn't very subtle in its messaging because that episode wasn't very subtle, and maybe that was part of the problem that hurt it a little bit.
I'm just wondering if part of the problem was, I think this is definitely true of the 80s version, um, was maybe they were trying too hard to replicate the atmosphere of the original Twilight Zone series.
And maybe I don't know about the new series having that problem, but maybe in the '80s, yeah.
Because I remember the 80s movie that I see, and the 80s movie was basically remakes of 3D episodes from the classic series, one of which was the famous one in a plane
Hmm.
that William Shatner was in the
Hmm.
original one. He wasn't in the remake of it, but he
I
was in the
think
original one.
that movie did okay, right? I think in box office. There was unfortunate. There was a famous death that happened to one of the actors, an accident that occurred in that. But otherwise, I thought it did pretty well in the box office. I don't know. I was pretty young
Uh,
at the time.
I didn't see it. I mean, I was only 15 at the time, so
Mhm.
but I
I
didn't
mean,
see it
I mean,
until
I
it came
wasn't
on video.
alive. I'm in my 20s. This is a fake beard.
Well,
It's
I
so
age backwards.
just so I can get bars. No.
I'm really only 12.
I thought so. That makes a lot of sense. No, dude.
Yeah, it
Um,
explains the double chin and the grey hair.
yeah, I thought the movie did okay, but yeah, but it was remakes, reimaginings of other stories. Were they all reimaginings? I remember, I know that one with the gremlin was on the plane wing. But
I
no,
I think there were, yeah. I think they're all remakes of the original Twilight Zone episodes, the famous ones. I mean, I try and watch a bit of Twilight Zone every now and again. I've got a season one, two, and three on my Amazon account,
hmm,
and they also have the Blu-ray box set of the whole series.
nice, nice.
So, but the trouble is, it's an American version, the Blu-ray box set. So I need to, rig
There's
up
not.
my multi-regional Blu-ray player to sort of watch it,
Oh.
which is awesome.
I don't know why Twilight Zone. I think it could be a big success. They just need a really good showrunner and group of writers to put it together and find that right mix and probably have a new host, I guess. Maybe you don't
Well,
have to have a host on
maybe
camera.
you can be hard pressed to find another Rod Serling figure, I think, and that's probably a problem. But I'm just wondering, comparatively, did Outlimit's benefit from having maybe a clearer identity? Because the Twilight Zone was different each episode. But the only thing that really connected it was Rod Serling doing a lead into each episode and whatnot. But every
Could
episode was
be.
different tonally, and
I would say Outer Limits definitely is a lot closer per episode of what you're going to expect to see. I've done anthologies. I've published different anthologies, and we do sci-fi fantasy mixes. But that is a problem sometimes because then not everybody's going to like every story probably because some people don't like fantasy, some people don't like sci-fi or whatever. Whereas Outer Limits is all sci-fi all the time, and they destroy the Earth more often than not. so
yeah. And
so you
you got Cyborg coming after you more often than that.
yeah. So I think when you it's sort of like Black Mirror. You know what you're in for when you watch it, right? You know what a Black Mirror episode's like. And I think Outer Limits is similar. You know what you're to expect for Outer Limits. Twilight Zone can be very different. It could be a Christmas magic episode. It could be something else completely different.
That's what I loved about it.
Yeah, well, that's what I do love about it. But you live or die on the twist and on the genre subgenre they're hitting sometimes,
Mhm.
and some people might not like the subgenre, and some people might not like the twist. And if you're going to do social commentary or deep cultural, philosophical debates or whatever, like what we mentioned earlier, you have to be very careful how you do it and very nuanced how that's given out. Otherwise, you'll turn off a good chunk of your potential fans. And I think for some reason that aspect of social commentary has gotten lost in a lot of stuff. Like even shows I really like. I loved a lot of the CW Arrowverse shows and stuff. They're fun, but anytime they
From
touched on
Supergirl.
anytime like Supergirl, anytime they touched on social commentary stuff, they were about as subtle as Harley Quinn hammering you to death or something. It's like there was no subtleness at all. And I don't know what happened to TV shows and stuff, but you got to be more subtle about that. So think about like, gosh, what was that? Oh, All in the Family. Okay, so like All in the
Oh,
Family, that's a edgy show when you think about it. Very edgy show, and they touch on a lot of topics about race and culture, everything. You have a character who's pretty racist and stuff. He's the lead character, but they were able to touch on like that kind of show would be extremely tough to pull off nowadays. Like somebody would be so super right or left on it or whatever. And those are the kind of shows that make people think and sometimes change your minds. If you're trying to change someone's mind to something you think is the way it is, you can't. You got to be subtle about it, and you got to do really good writing or something. Otherwise, you're not going to change anybody's mind. They're going to recognize what you're doing really quickly, and they're going to shut down and turn it off, and then go online and complain about it. So,
yeah, I mean, I think that when Star Trek did something like that, they always presented both sides of the argument, and
Mhm.
they never resolved it one way or the other because, neither side was completely happy with the compromise that they came up with at the end of each episode. It was always like balancing that sort of thing, but you always got both points. You always got both points of the philosophical argument or whatever across.
yeah,
Um,
and
so
that's
so it was more
something.
open to discussion.
Yeah, that's a big thing about Star Trek, right? At least originally. It's a thinking show in a lot of ways. It's not about who's got the biggest gun and can blow you up faster. It's about outthinking your enemies or talking and trying to settle something besides just pure violence. That's what makes it
Mhm.
different from a lot of other sci-fi shows. That's hard to write. It's harder, much harder to write than just saying they do a cool stunt and shoot somebody in the head or something with a phaser or something. It's a lot trickier to solve things without just pure violence.
Yeah, and that's the challenge of being a writer as well, of being a good writer, is, you've got to write characters that have political and philosophical beliefs that you maybe don't have.
Mhm.
And in order to do that convincingly, you've got to get into that into that character's mind and live that character in order to make it convincing. And then you got to do the same again to the other character that's counts to that character and whatnot. And that's what good writing is.
Yeah, the good writing's about being able to put yourself in other shoes, that be able to perceive other people's point of views. Otherwise, you can't write it. So,
Yeah,
shallow writing is where everybody's got your point of view in the world, and that's it. And that's all they
yep,
do, and they all agree on everything. All the good guys do, and all the bad guys don't for some reason, but they're really bad, and then you fight them, and that's it. It's shallow writing. But Twilight Zone is not shallow writing, not usually, and that's what made it so stand out, but makes it extremely difficult to do more of.
interesting question here. Did the 1990s television landscape maybe give the Outer Limits an advantage that later Twilight Zone revivals just didn't have?
That's true. I used to have a website around late 90s and to 2000s. And one of the things I had on that website is I tracked like all the different sci-fi fantasy TV shows and their dates and stuff. And then I would like try to cross reference and see how many shows we got. And I had bar charts and stuff. And yeah, as we went from 95 to 2000, the number of sci-fi shows, especially with syndication at the time, went up and up and up and up. There was more of a demand. Like we would eventually get Andromeda and all sorts of shows. Xena, Hercules was
Mm.
going on, all that stuff. Stargate, everything else. And so there was a bigger demand for those type of shows back then. And Showtime with Hour Limits, and then Stargate had a really good foundation for that show. Whereas I can't remember the 80s, but Twilight Zone, but whereas Paramount Plus, that was the launch of Paramount Plus, that app, and that was one of their new shows. So there's a lot more pressure and a lot less people probably watching that on that channel. Because I know the only thing that really, even though I liked Twilight Zone, the only thing that pulled me to eventually watch Paramount Plus was Star Trek, right? So eventually I was like,
Same
oh, how
here.
much? Yeah, and that was really the only thing making me keep Paramount Plus for the longest time was Star Trek. Now I like UFC and I like other stuff. They have other shows, Tracker and other things that I don't mind watching. But for the longest time, it
Tracker?
was
It's on, Tracker's Disney here in the
oh yeah,
UK.
it's a little probably a little
It's on
different.
Disney Plus. It's on Hulu.
Oh yeah, no, it's definitely not on Hulu on the US, but Tracker and Elsbeth, I believe, is Paramount Plus. Maybe Ghosts. I could be wrong, but I think Ghosts is on Paramount Plus. So we have a number of shows that we watch now that we like and they're on Paramount Plus. And then we like UFC and martial artists and stuff, and love watching the occasional UFC. And they're all UFC now, so that's great. But anyway, I'm going on a tangent here. But whenever it first started, there was nothing. And so that was probably not the greatest audience to start off. There's a lot of pressure for them to have to deliver, to show proof, probably in the metrics that they were bringing in a lot of people. And I don't think there was. I don't think a lot of people even realized Twilight Zone was on Paramount Plus. So
You know what I kind of envy about the US version of Paramount Plus when it launched?
what's that?
Because here, when it launched much later here. It's only had Paramount Plus maybe 4 years, maybe
Hmm.
5 years, I think here. And when it came out here, it was just all new stuff. Whereas the US version, you had the old series of MacGyver, you had the old series of Mission Impossible, and stuff like that. So you had the older stuff that was made for CBS as well as the newest stuff. We only get the new stuff.
That's weird.
So so the only way I can watch MacGyver is through my DVD box sets.
Really? That's a shame. It seems like a
So
wasted opportunity. Surely a lot of people want to watch MacGyver in the UK.
well, I'm sure I'm not the only one. It's got to be more than me. But yeah, that's something I was really a bit ticked off about was that. But moving back onto the Twilight Zone,
Mhm.
do you think Black Mirror perhaps is effectively become a successful modern reboot of the Twilight Zone without actually calling itself the Twilight Zone?
No, I would say I think Twilight Zone and Outer Limits helped set up the formula so Black Mirror could be a success and people would watch it. But I think Black Mirror is probably a little closer to Outer Limits because Black Mirror is all about technology and the bad things that could happen with technology in the future. I believe the showrunner was it used to be a tech journalist or something. And that's
Charlie
like
Brooker.
yeah, that's the whole thing about Black Mirror. So they're all warnings, cautionary tales mostly. Maybe not. Yeah, they're all pretty much cautionary tales. Some of them have, gosh, so few of them have happy endings. So I almost say it's more Dour Limits than Twilight Zone. Some of the darkest episodes of Twilight Zone, sure, but Twilight Zone has a lot of happier ending episodes too. So I don't think it's
I
a.
don't remember that.
I think so, right? There's some good ones. There's some happy endings.
Maybe it's a while since I've seen them. I mean, the last Twilight Zone episode I watched, right, the last one I watched was Night of Meat, which I actually reviewed on SciFiPulse, because it's quite a good Christmas episode.
Huh?
And basically, a drunken department store Santa Claus, Henry Corwin, finds a mysterious bag on Christmas Eve. And that's got a really good bit of social commentary in it. It's worth rewatching if you've never actually seen it. But that's a really interesting episode with a bit of social commentary in it.
Yeah. I mean, from a social commentary perspective, Twilight Zone But I feel like Our Limits tends to be darker. They lean more towards horror, I think, sci-fi. So it's I guess it's sort of like a little bit of a hybrid of the two in some ways. Takes a little bit of the sci-fi horror and a little bit of the Twilight Zone social commentary. And not that both of them don't have those elements, but that's what they're probably both best known for, I would say. But no, I think Black Mirror is its own unique creation in many ways, especially when you have the whole weird pig politician episode thing that was really bizarre in season one. It was gross, but
Oh, the pig thing, yeah.
yeah, that
But
was one.
this is gonna really make you laugh actually, because a few years after that episode aired,
Mhm,
um, it came out that our actual prime minister at the time, David Cameron,
mhm.
there was a book came out about him, and allegedly, um, as an initiation, he
Yeah,
did
okay, we don't
have
need to say anything
inappropriate.
more. Yeah, I got you.
So, but meme that went along the internet about him, and instead of calling him David Cameron, they're calling him David Hamron.
Oh, jeez. So was that before the Black Mirror episode or after the Black Mirror episode?
It was a couple of years after the Black Mirror episode,
Huh.
and basically everyone, because that came out at the time, actually everyone started going to Netflix and rewatching that Black Mirror episode.
Wow. Yeah. I would say Black Mirror is probably more disturbing than either one of the shows in some ways because so much of it could happen. Some of it's happening, some of it's stuff they did in early episodes is happening in some form already. That's the most disturbing. Black Mirror is more disturbing.
Yeah, with the one I remember seeing was one with the social media where
Mhm.
they got credit if they got bigged up on social media sort of thing, but if they got below a certain level of points or whatever, they were completely ostracized.
Yeah. And I remember China, I don't know if they're doing it, if they did it or they still are doing it or whatever, but they were going to do something with social media and you get scoring and stuff as what kind of model citizen you are and stuff like that. Something along those lines. So that's what I mean. Like I think Black Mirror probably is. They're probably pulling from stuff that it's in too hard to predict. A couple years down the road, it can go in that direction. So, because I remember they did an episode where like if people die, they can pull all your social media, all your writings and stuff online, and then make an AI version of you, and then you can talk to them. Loved ones could talk to you, and there are people trying to make that product now. So, Black Mirror is not far off in many ways from potential reality. And like a lot of good sci-fi, it tries to warn you about the potential problems that could come of technology if you're not careful.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Twilight Zone, what it did well was it shone a light on humanity. Really,
Yeah.
it highlighted the light and the dark of humanity. You
Mhm.
know, equally. In that night of the meek, a drunk Santa Claus who, you know, you know, ostracized and thought of as a bit of a bum,
Mhm.
sort of thing. Finds this bag that produces gifts and starts giving these gifts to people. All of a sudden, his status is kind of elevated a little bit in people's hearts because of that.
Mhm. Yeah. There's a lot of really great social commentary in Twilight Zone. It's just a study of humanity, right? And it can go towards fantasy or sci-fi. It doesn't stick with a particular genre in that way, like Outer Limits does. Outer Limits is usually it's all sci-fi, usually alien stuff a lot of times, and the world usually gets destroyed somehow. 9 out of 10
Yep.
times. um,
Yeah, I think they actually did a couple of remakes of classic episodes of Outer Limits within this Outer Limits series as well of the 90s, because they had that one with Leonard Nimoy
mm,
in, which was quite a famous one that they redid.
mhm. Yeah, it's really interesting looking at different anthology shows because, like you're mentioning Black Mirror, there's others. They're very different, right? Like Tales from the
Yep.
Crypt, or Creep Show. Those aren't usually deep social commentary stuff.
They're usually so like. creepy
Yeah,
or
there's this
sometimes hilariously
creepy,
funny.
yeah, creepy horror or funny, dark humor kind of stuff. So it's very different than what you get in Twilight Zone or Outer Limits. So
A favorite of mine was Amazing Stories. Remember that one?
yeah, I remember that a little bit. Yeah.
I
Remember the
really enjoyed
opening.
that.
I like anthologies. We publish a bunch of anthologies at Cabot Crossing, and I love the idea of mixing, getting to explore different stories and having these, stories that you can absorb and potentially one sitting. Like in when you're watching a half hour or 1 hour TV show or reading a short story. So I love that
Mhm.
that feeling. Those stories tend to leave a little bit of stronger punch too because they're just in and out really quick.
Yep. Yeah, I'm just wondering what would it take for the Twilight Zone to succeed today, or is it maybe best left in the past?
No, I think we should get more Twilight Zone someday, but it may need a really good host. I think it needs some really stellar writers, maybe writers who have not only written for TV but also for books and stuff.
Hmm.
And if you do a Twilight Zone episode and you get some authors combined with some good filmmakers, maybe a good narrator person, I can't think of who would be the Rod Serling of today. Is there somebody you can think of that would be
Oh
that?
my God, that is a really tough one.
I think Patrick
Yeah,
Stewart could have pulled that off almost, but I'm not sure. You have to have
yeah.
quite a gravitas, quite a presence.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing is with Rod Serling, though, is I think he wrote quite a lot of the episodes of the original Twilight Zone as well, didn't he? So,
That's true. He's not just a face. He's one of the writers too, and a showrunner. So I don't know. That's tough. I mean, Jordan Peele wasn't a bad choice or anything. Just didn't work out for whatever reason. So I still think that Twilight Zone. I think maybe if they had course corrected, adjusted, the second season would have probably been a lot better. I don't think Jordan Peele as a host was bad in any way because he had that reputation with his first few horror movies. Del Toro could be one, but Del Toro actually did a anthology series and it did
he did.
okay.
That's on Netflix, isn't it?
Yeah, have you watched it? His Cabinet of
No,
Curiosities.
I haven't watched it, but I do have it on my watch list of things to watch.
Oh yeah, you should give it a watch. It's okay. I don't think we're not going to get any more seasons. I don't think. But it's tough to do animated series or not or a animated series. It's tough to do an
Anthology
anthology
series.
series. Yeah, it's tough to do an anthology series. So it's tricky to pull it off. Del Toro's was more like a Lovecraftian-ish kind of horror. It's pretty dark, which I
Mhm.
like. I like some Lovecraftian horror, but Twilight Zone has its own unique vibe, and it's gonna need a nice mix of a good writing cast and a strong showrunner to pull it off.
You could have do an anthology series where each episode's a different parallel world.
Yeah, yeah. Well, maybe they are in Twilight Zone. There was an Outer Limits in that series at Showtime. I think they did some episodes where they tried to link together different previous episodes, didn't they? Yeah,
I think they probably did.
they were really kind of clip episodes. TV shows used to do those clip episodes.
Yep.
Yeah, they did a couple of those. I thought that was really interesting way to link things together. So, which is yeah, tough to
I
do when you
think
destroy
I
the
think
Earth so
Star
many
Trek
times.
Next I think Star Trek Next Generation did a clip episode towards the end of season two
Mm.
where, Riker had been, infected with something and they basically just played back the first 2 years worth of his adventures.
A lot of shows did. Stargate had a few clip episodes too. I mean, they had other stuff going on, but they were a good chunk of the episode was playing, memories and stuff of different episodes. When they would have a review, like when the senator came to like try to shut them down, and they're going through everything. You had to do that back then. You had so many episodes, and you had to save some money in the budget.
Whereas with the original Battlestar Galactica, you just got the same sort of like stock footage of the Viper
Yeah.
and dogfighting
Mm-hmm.
from episode to episode.
Yep. All
They
right.
they just took it off the original movie.
Okay, I think we're getting tangents. I think that means we're probably done for now with this topic. Do you think so?
Yeah, I think we're done. I say they need to bring Twilight Zone back at some point,
I do.
but
Even
yeah,
an hour limits too. I wouldn't mind seeing new hour limits at some point too. But we need a good new Twilight Zone. And
yeah, we need a good new Twilight Zone that can run for 7 seasons.
yes, yeah, I think it can happen. It could happen. Paramount Plus should do that. They're gonna have less Star Trek. They gotta better do something to fill in the blank, or you're gonna lose all your sci-fi
Yeah,
fans. I'm just saying.
they've got loads of IP to play with, and if they manage to get Warner Brothers as well,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I mean, sorry, I mean, I've heard that he's moving to Canada. The guy that owns Paramount is thinking of moving the production studios and setting up the Los Angeles studios and relocating them.
Yeah, I don't. We'll see what happens. We'll see.
I think it'd be sad if they did that. It'd be sad if they did that.
It would be, but
Mm.
wait and see what happens in the next Twilight Zone episode. So
Yeah,
let us
yeah.
know what you think. What do you think, Twilight Zone? Why hasn't there been a good, successful Twilight Zone reboot? Or you think we're wrong? Maybe the '80s one was amazing to you. I don't know, or the Paramount Plus one. Let us know what your favorite Twilight Zone or Hour Limits episode is, and please subscribe and like.
Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Okay, let's switch off that vertical and that horizontal.